You know, we spend decades planning for the financial side of retirement, right? But what about everything that happens after that last day of work? Have you ever really stopped to wonder what your life will look like and how you can be sure you're truly ready for it? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into that. The idea that retirement is so much more than a financial finish line. It's really the beginning of your second act.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a pretty big question. And I mean it. Take a second and really think about this. Who are you without your job title? For so many of us, our career becomes a huge part of our identity. So what happens when that's suddenly gone?
That one question gets right to the heart of what we're going to unpack here today, the psychological journey of retirement. It's a side of things that can honestly catch a lot of people by surprise, and it's every bit as important as your financial plan.
And that brings us to our first big idea, what some people call the retirement identity crisis. Now I know, it sounds a little dramatic, but it's a very real and super common experience. This isn't just about not having to set an alarm clock, it's about figuring out who you are now. So what is it really? Well, the retirement identity crisis is that feeling of being a little adrift, of losing that sense of self and purpose once your career isn't the main event anymore. And hey, if you've ever felt even a tiny bit anxious about this, you are definitely not alone.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's that direct, simple question, who am I now? It's the shift from introducing yourself as, a teacher or an engineer or a manager to just, I'm retired. And that can be a really tough transition to make.
But here's the good news. This emotional transition, it's a journey. It's not some cliff you suddenly fall off of. And like most journeys, it has some pretty recognizable stages. Understanding them can make navigating your new normal a whole lot easier.
Experts often break it down into these 4 phases. First, there's the honeymoon phase. That's the pure excitement, no alarm clock, total freedom. Then, sometimes, a letdown phase can kick in, where the novelty wears off. But that leads to reorientation, where you start actively building a new life. And finally, you find stability, where you settle into a new rhythm that really feels good. Now, it's not always a perfect straight line, but it's a really helpful roadmap.
And understanding those phases leads us to the most empowering part of all of this. The goal is to completely shift your mindset. You're not just retiring from a job, you're retiring to a brand new chapter that you get to design yourself.
To make this feel a little more real, let's talk about an example. Let's call him John. So John was thrilled to retire, but after just a few months, that initial excitement started to fade. He realized he really missed the day-to-day chats and the sense of teamwork he had at his old job.
He just started to feel aimless, like his purpose had kind of evaporated. And this wasn't just affecting him, it was actually creating some tension at home because he was starting to rely on his wife for pretty much all of his social interaction. So what did he do? John started volunteering with a group that builds local homes, and almost immediately this gave him a new routine, a whole new circle of friends, and a really powerful new identity. He wasn't a former manager anymore, he was a community builder. John's story really highlights the key principle here. You have to proactively fill your life with things that matter to you. His solution was volunteering, but there are so many different paths. Just look at this list. What jumps out at you? Maybe it's finally picking up that guitar or even finding a fun, low-stress encore job. The most crucial thing is to be intentional. First, let's talk about connection. Your work friends might fade away, and that's okay, but it means it's vital to build and nurture your social circles outside of that old context. Think about joining a club, a walking group, or even just making a weekly coffee date with a neighbor. Next up, learn. You know that old saying, use it or lose it? It is so true for our brains. Taking a class, learning a new skill, it keeps you sharp, it keeps you engaged, and it gives you this wonderful sense of progress. Maybe it's a free online course or a local workshop on something you've always been curious about.
And finally, grow. Retirement is an absolutely incredible opportunity for personal development. It's the time to discover new sides of yourself, to explore interests you just never had time for before. A great way to start is to just write down 3 things you were always too busy to do, and then just pick one to try this month.
This leads to one of my favorite concepts, your non-financial portfolio. We all know about stocks and bonds, but trust me, these are the assets that truly determine whether you have a rich and happy retirement.
So take a look at this chart. It's a great way to visualize where you might want to invest your time and energy. Notice how purpose and relationships are the biggest pieces of the pie. Research consistently shows these 2 things are the core drivers of happiness.
Your health, of course, is the foundation for everything else. And that little slice for growth, that's what keeps life exciting. Just take a second. How balanced is your portfolio right now?
And that brings us right back to the main message. This quote really says it all. Having a vision for what you are moving toward is probably the single most important factor for a successful transition. What are you excited to retire to? So, as we wrap this up, let's lock in the key takeaways. First, please remember, your identity is so much bigger than your job title. Second, all those emotional ups and downs, totally normal part of the process. And most important of all, you are the architect of your second act.
At the end of the day, retirement isn't about hitting a certain age or having a certain number in a bank account. It's about being ready, emotionally and psychologically, for the freedom that you've worked so incredibly hard to earn.
Now, if you want to start actively building that non-financial portfolio, a great place to start is the website on your screen. There are tools there that can help you create a personalized roadmap for the years ahead.
And I'll leave you with this one last thought to chew on. Forget about what you're leaving behind for a moment. What is the very first thing that you want to retire to?